Good afternoon. Welcome to the Orlando Sentinel's editorial board interview. Today we are joined by Stephanie Dukes. She is the Democratic candidate for Senate District 13, which is essentially Lake County. She is challenging Senator Dennis Baxley, who is the incumbent, and he is a Republican. He was invited to be with us today, and he did decline. So we are going to spend a little while giving Ms. Dukes an opportunity to answer some questions about important issues in Florida, and then we will give her a chance to wrap up. And we thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with a question that touches on the only duty that members of the state Senate have to accomplish, and that is to write a budget. Mm-hmm. Now, for the last couple of years, it's been a little easier because the federal government has helped with money. Now, much of that was tucked into reserves. Some of it was used to cover some different things that lawmakers and the governor wanted to pay for. Mm-hmm. But that money's going to start drying up.
Yes.
And now Florida is facing a situation where they don't know how much of what's left over of what is now a pretty healthy reserve after we assess the damage after Hurricane Ian. So I would like to know where you think Florida's budget priorities should primarily be, and what, if anything, the state should do in terms of its revenue and raising more money. So if you want to start with the revenue and then move on to spending, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity first, and thank each of you for your investigative work that you do that brings such topics as the budget to our attention. We all know that the first thing we've got to do is make sure our budget covers the basic needs of the society as food, clothing, and shelter. So the very first thing that I believe we should look at is things like funds that are already there, like the Sadowski Fund, that is automatically dedicated for housing to go properly where it was supposed to, and not continue to play, let's move it here for there, but use it for the people. When we use those funds appropriately, and if we accept the federal funds to expand Medicaid, we can then turn around and take those state funds, move them to other areas like education, which we all know that the lottery, when we passed the lottery years ago, and I was a proponent at my young age, and I was out there supporting, yes, for the lottery, but I did not intend and did not know that it was going to be considered the sole source of the educational funding to enhance it. So covering those basic needs, I think we could do that, which accepting, again, money from the federal government for Medicaid.
Thank you. Are there any changes to Florida's tax structure that you believe are needed at this time?
The beauty of Florida's tax structure, for why we have daily over almost 200 people a day moving to Florida, is our tax structure. And we basically are in a tourism state, and we derive a lot of our money from the tourisms, the counties, from their county taxes. So we have a pretty good supportive base there in those areas that are pretty much governed by, and I do believe in local governments, making their own basic rules of what's best for them. So no, right now with our state government, we use our tax structure to not only invite visitors, residents, but also businesses. So that's a big component when we bring into our economic base.
Following up on that, you mentioned tourism and local control. Right now, the state laws are pretty restrictive on how hotel taxes can be spent, primarily on things that promote more tourism. Some people have advocated, following the lead of other tourism states like Nevada, Las Vegas, that give more discretion to localities for how they spend those hotel taxes. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on whether any of that should be changed.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do believe, and I do like the Las Vegas model, because we vary. Like now, we have the hurricane that has hit Fort Myers, and they spend their money a little bit differently because they are attracting a different residential group. Where Orlando, Orange County, we're attracting a vacation group who ends up liking us because of the vacation, and then moves out into areas like where I live, Lake County, the southwest portion, because we're close to that southwest portion of Orange County to take advantage of the tourism. And basically, really, that's the area. If my area pulls in the bulk of the money, I think that government should have a good portion of the say in how they spend their money. And of course, we do have to look out for our neighbors. So I do believe in, sharing the wealth.
Okay, thanks. I want to switch topics. I had looked at your website and I saw that one of the things that you were considered most important was revamping the unemployment system. 2 years ago, almost every candidate talked about that. This year, hardly anybody has. We're starting to hear some anecdotal problems with response to Ian and that website. I'm curious, though, what you had in mind, what kind of reforms you wanted for unemployment in the state.
Well, one of the things that we learned from COVID was the timeline was the first part. That window that was provided assistance for was not accommodating for the crisis that we went through, COVID, and it will not probably be accommodating for those that are going through the hurricane relief right now. So that was our first issue. The second issue was that system seemed to be designed to fail, and we needed to have a better rapid response, so it met the needs of those who were applying and needed their financial needs met immediately. And it was only through the investigative work of reporters that we saw a lot of citizens receive what they're needed. And that should not be. Our government is there to serve our people, and particularly through a time of crisis. We shouldn't be playing politics with, again, the basic needs: food, clothing, and shelter.
I had a quick question. I know your opponent did not agree to come to this interview. Have you two done any public debates or forums together?
We were on, what, I was just thinking about that earlier. We were on a forum together, but it was not a debate. It was more of, you just talk about your issues. I could not remember, though, who sponsored that.
That's okay. I was just curious. Okay. So there's been one.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I thought I would weigh in real quick with you'd mentioned affordable housing a bit earlier, and I wanted to touch a bit more on that. Because as you said, food, clothing, shelter are staples here. The Sadowski Fund is one thing that you brought up, and that's obviously a fund that's been bobbled back and forth for a couple of years. But besides not touching that and using what funds are there, what other things are needed to sort of help start the recovery from the affordable housing crisis?
When you talk about, I need to ask a little follow-up question here. When we talk about start to recover from that, are you mentioning to lower prices or just create an area where they are more workforce affordable housing?
I think that could be a choice either way for you in terms of building more housing that's available, providing more shelter for those who need it, no matter how that comes about.
Oh, okay. I have sat in on several city meetings and listened to the city commissioners, because that is essentially who has that power there. And they have talked about, we can support it on the state level, make sure the funds are there to help the housing coalitions and commissions put together their plan. What I have heard and I like and was kind of disturbed about was that these cities are looking for land to build shelters for, because in this area we're finding that in District 13 we have a homeless population. So when we talk about affordable home, and we also cannot leave out the homeless, because right now we have them living up into the different brush, and they're being pushed out. But then we have to look at the workforce housing, the people who are caught between being homeless, one paycheck, and those who we've securely and financially can afford whatever we want. For those citizens, we need to make sure that we do put forth, like we did in the 55 community, when those originally started out, used to be 65, remember? And we had a certain percentage of those that was set aside for those that was younger than that. We have to make sure our community is not filled full of high end. That is going to cause management growth.
I wanted to switch to something that, well, it very much bears on housing, unfortunately, at times. And in parts of Lake County and today in Seminole County in particular, we saw flooding crest from Hurricane Ian. And there's some significant devastation going on.
Right.
Where should the state be putting more effort into covering and recovering from the devastating floods that we are told by reputable scientists are only going to get worse?
Thank you very much for that question. That is going to take a concerted effort, not only just to throw money, but put the research and follow up on the research we do. When we look at our flooding, we look at development. We are particularly here in Lake County, we are removing a lot of tree, the structure that holds the ground together, building down into valleys, low-lying areas. We're going to have to really look at building up those areas, looking at and taking seriously the studies that have been done by the Department of Civil Engineers, and really look at making sure that we have proper drainage areas, not just come in pack. Out where I live, we went through a battle of making sure that the new homes next to where I live had proper drainage fields. And originally that wasn't in the original plan. If I had not gone to the Department of Planning, asked to see the specs for what had been approved, and then I began to ask, where was the retention pond? We have to make sure that our government officials ask those questions in the beginning, not at the end when we have such a crisis like this, so that our money is well spent, that is coming from the federal government that we're getting ready to receive from President Biden, and as well as the state funds. We got to use our monies correctly.
I had a question about the district. We hear a lot from residents who talk about they want to see legislators work together. I think your district, I checked, that's actually why I disappeared for a second ago. It's still pretty heavily Republican. I think it's got about a 45 to 50,000 advantage for Republicans. What do you say to the voters of that district who are looking at you? You've got a D next to your name. More of them have R's next to them, to their name. What do you say to them to say I'd be a good candidate for you?
I would say see the D as Dukes. See it as that. You know, the students, when I was coming up in school, they used to say, put up your Dukes, let's go at it. That's the type of person I am. No matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, black or white, the issues are real plain. They're real simple. They get muddy when we try to control one another and not really work at what's best for everyone. Knowing that when we sit at the table, it is negotiation time. It is not the time to say that this table belongs to me. The table belongs to the people. And in my instance, the table belonged to all of the people of District 13, Lake County and the southwest portion of Orange County. We sit at that table to make our lives what we have at Disney. We want it to be a happy land. We want it to be full of joy.
Thank you very much.
You're quite welcome. Thank you.
Unfortunately, not a very joyful topic right now. A flashpoint for controversy in Florida, as across the nation, is access to reproductive health care for women. There is a considerable fear in the aftermath of what is being called the 15-day abortion ban, which is actually not quite 15 days, that the legislature will come back and restrict abortion further. Do you favor any further restrictions on abortion, or do you think that there are laws that should be repealed? And if you could be pretty specific about where you think the line should be drawn.
Where I think the line should be drawn is in the simple fact of how America was created. America was created and the revolution came about because restrictions, tight restrictions, were put in on a group of people who felt that they should be free and have certain liberties. They fought for them hard, and today we celebrate every July 4th because we celebrate the basic principles of freedom. We have the Constitution, the Bills of Rights, and these were created on the principles of natural rights, popular laws, rules of law, and the social contract. What I believe is real simple. God in the beginning gave all of us a choice, the choice of free will, so that each and every one of us can make a choice according to our own beliefs, that according to our health, our economic standards, our educational desires, and our friendships.
I did want to sneak one more question in there, which is Florida is said to be facing a teacher shortage. And a lot of people say that the legislature has a good bit to do with that. What should lawmakers be doing to ensure that there are enough qualified, prepared teachers to give kids the education that the Florida Constitution guarantees them?
Thank you for that one, because I am a retired teacher. What Florida, part of my theme for my campaign is moving Florida future forward. What we have to learn to stop doing as legislators is learn to respect the will of the people. Years ago, we passed measures for classroom sizes because the teachers and the parents spoke up and said for us to have a quality education, for teachers to be able to teach and not babysit, where I can look at the individual needs of my classroom and as one teacher be able to teach 20 children who are born, who all have different characteristics, different desires, different styles of learning, that we needed that classroom size. We have to maintain the contracts that we make with the teachers. If we expect to keep us in the classroom, if we expect to see our classroom and our students excel and become number one, I grew up in a community where most of the students where I come from went on to be teachers, doctors, have doctoral degrees, but it was all because of the respect of the community and what the teachers needed to teach.
Well, thank you. We have come to the time that we have allotted for this. interview. But I wanted to see if my colleagues had any more questions they wanted to ask before then. Okay, well, I wanted to let everybody know that Orlando Sentinel will be making an endorsement in this race. That's our plan, and we do urge you, however, to look beyond that as well, and take a look at websites for both candidates, read our excellent coverage of this race and others, and then make up your own mind and be prepared to vote on November 8th. And with that, I would like to invite Ms. Dukes to make a closing statement. Give us your best pitch as to why voters should choose you in this Senate race.
Thank you. I thank you for this opportunity, and I speak directly to each and every one of the citizens within District 13, Lake County, in the southwest portion of Lake County, as well as the entire state of Florida this evening. Because to get anything accomplished, I have to work with each and every one of the other senators who will sit around the table and make the decision about the lives and the future of Florida. I grew up in a community and walked 2 miles to school, where on that school campus was the Statue of Liberty. Every day for 4 years, I looked at that statue. I bought into and believed with all my heart, as I still today, in the American dream. A dream home, a dream community, a dream family. My family extended to beyond just my household. It extended to my neighbors' neighbors, and the communities in, around, and about me. I ask you to take a look at my website, votestephaniedukes.com. Vote for the future of Florida, to move it forward, and I humbly ask you to vote Stephanie Dukes, your next senator for District 13.
Thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed talking with you, and we wish you good luck.